my review of the 3DR Solo drone, and drones are fun! I want to talk generally about aerial photography and videography for a moment, and then share some specific thoughts on this 3DR Solo. As a photographer and videographer, and especially as someone that creates content for others to learn from and enjoy, adding a drone to your collection of gear is fun and useful. Think of all those times where you're like, that cool angle is just out of reach, or if I could get a little bit of a higher angle, this would be an epic shot. Well, now you can. And you can do it very affordably and easy, and I really do mean easy. So for the last few weeks, I've been studying Google Maps and brainstorming areas around my town in southern Vermont that would make for some cool shots. One thing I want you to keep in mind as you shoot with a drone, just because you can take pictures from any angle and pretty much any altitude, under 400 feet, it doesn't automatically make for an awesome photo. Keep in mind your general rules of composition. Rule of thirds, using leading lines, those techniques can help you get some shots that are really going to stand out. Capturing patterns from the air is another technique that can be fun to try. And then there's the whole video side of things. So much potential to have a device capable of capturing 4K video. Again, if you're a content creator, this is a powerful tool that allows you to set the scene, shoot amazing alternate angles, and just adds that ability to raise your level of production several notches. And the Solo specifically has some really nice features that make it extra easy. So let's get the basics of this drone out of the way. This is the 3DR Solo quadcopter with 3-axis gimbal. Currently sells for about $1,000. The cheaper listings don't include the gimbal, and you really want to go ahead and make sure you spend it extra. The gimbal provides some amazingly smooth footage. Really, with the gimbal, all you need to do to get smooth footage is not fly like a nut job. The gimbal and the drone does all of the rest. Setup is extremely easy. You pop it out of the nicely designed backpack, screw on the props, making sure to match silver to silver, black to black. I usually turn it on actually before attaching the props, as that gives it some time to search for GPS. Then I turn on the remote, slide a smartphone or tablet into that holder, and wait for it to get its GPS lock. It's going to let you know when it's ready to fly. Most of the time that only took a minute or two in open skies. Flying is extremely easy. Single push button to take off and land. You've got a live view from the camera being streamed to your smart device, and the quality is great with little lag. If you fly far enough to lose the connection, the drone will return home automatically. You can also ask it to return home and land with a single push of the button. I found that distance to be about 1,600 to 1,700 feet before it starts to lose the connection. Now make sure you have adjusted the default return to home elevation if you've got tall trees around or any other larger obstacles, because that can be a little dangerous. You've got additional controls through your connected smart device, and this is a nice advantage of the Solo over other drones in this price range. You've got a variety of tools that provide easy setup and filming of cinematic sequences without needing anyone else flying the drone. Again, as someone that does a lot of this work solo, this is a great way to get the shots you want. Cable Cam lets you set up start and end points. You simply fly the drone to where you want it to start, push a button, fly it to the other end of the path, and push another button. You can now have the drone fly back and forth along that path and control its speed and even rotate the camera freely if desired. Follow mode will follow along after your smart device. Now I've had some mixed success with this. In simple setups it worked decently to follow me as I walked, but working with my friend Steve on his bike it was a little less willing and kept dropping out of the follow mode. You also have orbit, which will orbit you or whatever object you've given your smartphone to, and that's pretty nifty. It will even do that as it follows. Now for some of these shots I felt comfortable enough actually setting down the controller and just letting the drone fly on its prescribed path, as I did what I needed to get the shot. Firmware updates came in pretty regularly while I used the drone and added some additional functionality like multi-point cable cam, letting you set up a more complex path easily that the drone will fly back and forth. You do have additional controls, and only recently did I crank up the max speed, and yes, this drone can really move. But it isn't all good. I've got a couple of times where the GoPro refuses to start recording, and the only way to fix that seems to be turn everything off and back on, which can take a minute or two. And if you took off before realizing this, you of course have to land. I'm not sure if that's the GoPro's fault or the software or the connection, but it causes some slowdown. And now while the gimbal does keep everything stabilized, there's a good bit of drone movement inside its little GPS bubble. Sometimes in tighter spaces, you quickly realize that that tree you thought was far enough away when you took off was quite close. The same thing for coming in for a landing. I was convinced by some random dude to try and land on the roof of my car, which seemed big enough at the time, but took me several minutes to manage. There was a decent wind, which didn't help, but let's talk a little bit about crashing. It's probably going to happen. So far, I've only broken props, and every time I crashed was me trying to fly in a smaller space than I probably should have. Funny enough, because of the two different types of props, I've managed to break the silver ones at 2 times the rate of the black. I don't know why, but make sure you've got some spares on hand. If you follow all of the directions and take off and land in open spaces, you'll probably be just fine. I haven't had any problems doing that. I do recommend bringing along a little tool like a pair of pliers, because there was a couple of times actually where I broke a prop and I had spares on me, but I couldn't get the broken one off without enough torque without using pliers. Now, while I do appreciate the remote control over video features, when you switch to photo mode in there, you've got very little control. Why can't I adjust exposure like I can with video? I really want to be able to adjust that exposure because the GoPro tends to blow out highlights. If you want to preset the GoPro to shoot video and stills at the same time, you do need to do that through the GoPro app. It will continue to work when flying, though you've now limited yourself to 1080p at 24 frames a second, and I really like shooting at 2.7K and 60 for that smoothest looking footage. Again, that's limitations of the GoPro more than the drone itself, but they're working together. Now at $1,000 for the drone and gimbal, you need to supply that GoPro, and you can use a GoPro Hero 3 or 4. That is an extra expense that brings the total cost of this package now very close to the newest DJI Phantom 4, which does have some follow smarts too, and it's nice, small, and portable, and sets up quickly. But this might be a pro or con. I like the idea of possibly upgrading to a newer GoPro in the future and having better quality. I want to know what you think. Is this a pro or con? And of course, it always depends on whether or not that form factor of the new GoPro is the same. So, do you like using a GoPro on a drone, or would you rather go with a built-in camera like the DJI offers? Overall, if you already have a GoPro and you want those cable cam, orbit, and follow features, plus whatever else 3D robotics adds in the future through firmware updates, I could certainly recommend this drone. If you plan on purchasing, I ask that you use my links below. That's the easiest way to support our work on this channel. And you can also check out photorec.tv/support for some awesome ways you can support our work even further while getting support of your own growing as a photographer or drone operator. And you can follow me on Instagram or Snapchat to see what I'm up to between videos. Hit that thumbs up if you found this useful, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.